Hello, this is Sperry, and I'm going to show you my basic idea of the fastest way to train gags in Corporate Clash. So there's a few basic principles you're going to want to follow in order to maximize the gag points you get. Number one is, first of all, if you have low level gags, you're going to want to train on the street in Subbot HQ in an invasion district on Gag Farming Friday. You're going to get X4 XP just base training in the street. This is a really good way to train up until you get a big enough gag pouch, maybe 40 or 50 gags. 50 is ideal, and also be able to get at least level 5 gags. Both of these are going to make things a lot easier later on because of the multiplicativity of when you go and move on to bullion mints, which I'm showing in here. Secondly, once you get your gags to that point, the fastest way to train is going to be doing bullion mints, and you're going to want to do them on Gag Farming Friday. You get a base multiplier XP of times 7, which is insane. It's insane how much XP you can actually gain this way. And then third of all, the fastest way to train is if you have a high toon who can carry you through, maybe even restock your gags. In this particular video, because Cricket has a small gag pouch, I actually go ahead and use one gag up all. You don't need to necessarily do that if you have a bigger gag pouch, but either way, having a toon with maxed lure makes things much faster because, as you can see, I'm one-shotting all of the cogs I'm fighting in this instance, which makes training pretty much everything faster. If you're training sound, you can just spam with regular toons doing bullion mints. You don't really need to, I guess, dedicatedly train it. But if you're doing throw, squirt, trap, zap, lure, I guess maybe you need to have a high toon as well to help hit the accuracy, or drop. Pretty much anything else, you're going to want to attack the cogs one at a time and try to one-shot them so you don't have to sit through the death animations of the said cogs. You can see that I'm pretty much killing them at very fast speed because I don't have to ever have the cogs attack me very much. On occasion they do attack me because I either mess up, don't get the right combo because this was not a perfect run, I was kind of winging it, or sometimes they wake up. So in those instances, yes, I am sitting through some cog damage, but the good part about it is that generally speaking, I'm minimizing the amount of rounds I need to see cog animations, which will make things go faster. I'm also picking gags very quickly. Now in this case I'm running 2, which makes it easier to coordinate, but if you're running with friends, I would encourage them to pick gags as fast as possible, because if you do that, it will minimize the amount of time you're wasting. It will get you more gag points per hour. And I'm pretty sure most people want to have good gags, so they're going to want to get as many gag points as they can per hour, I would assume. So, number one tip would be get your gags to level 5, get a big enough gag pouch in the headquarters, but once you're moving on to bullions, you're going to want to have at least one toon that has decent enough lure. You're going to want to have enough toon up in your group to sustain both. If one toon has prestige toon up, that's enough to carry the whole group. But generally speaking, after that, you're going to want to train a couple gag tracks. I recommend training a couple at the same time, because if you only train one, then you're going to have to move from highest gag to lowest gag more drastically. Whereas if you're training everything, you can notice how I'm intentionally using the highest level gags of every track and then moving to the lowest level ones because I'm maximizing my potential XP. Let's say I get a throw barrel right after this, I can get my cream pies back, whereas if I saved them, I would have never gotten the XP of using them in the first place. Now, you can't necessarily be as aggressive as I am in terms of using your gags highest to lowest if you don't have a high toon carrying you. Make sure you have enough to not green yourself in the group, as in, like, don't run out of gags to kill the cogs, especially that final supervisor. But assuming you have enough firepower between the people you're training with, your fastest method is going to be using gags highest to lowest. You can do them one at a time, but I would strongly recommend, unless you have a ton of gag ups for that specific track, try to train them all at once. And in this case, I do use one gag up all on Sperry to restock Cricket's gags and Sperry's gags. The main purpose for this is actually just because Cricket had such a small gag pouch, he just ran out of attacking gags in general. This isn't necessary, it's just, I guess, a modification I made specifically because I wanted to just get him to his next tier as fast as possible. But the general premise of using your highest to lowest, attacking one cog at a time, trying to minimize the amount of animations, doing bullion mints, all that is basically your entire strategy. Also, you notice one thing I'm doing is I'm using some tune-up stuns. You can also use trap stuns. You want to make the lure hit as much as possible, because if your lure misses, that's a lot of wasted time, and it could potentially make your lure toons you're training go sad. So try to make your lure hit as much as you can, especially if it's not maxed, like it is in my instance. I don't think I had any lure misses in this because my lure was maxed and I was stunning for it a lot. In particular, if you have magnets, you need to stun for it, or else you're risking the potential accuracy of the gag itself. But number one, by far your biggest training tip is going to be, you are going to want to really emphasize getting your gags to a point, your gag pouch enough to get into the bullion, and then you just want to spam these with an adequate group that's not going to die and not going to waste a lot of time trying to survive feudally. And you want to have as much synergy between all the people training as possible. In this case, there's pretty much maximum synergy, only because I'm running both tunes myself, and Sperry has all max gags, so I'm just using him as basically doing the bidding of Cricket's training. Now, if you're not in that instance, you just want to try to find people to train with who are trying to train the same gag types you are. Like, let's say you're training with someone who's using a bunch of different strategies. It's not going to be nearly as effective because you can't train as synergistically. And I will just kind of briefly go into the fastest way to train each gag in the Bullion Mint once you're here. We'll break it down a little bit more. For tune-up, you're going to want to attack one cog weakly, like as you can see right here on Sperry. Attack one cog weakly, and then have the other tune pass, and just kind of spam tune-up and pass until the aggro is broken. In which case, you can either trade tune-up between the two tunes, which is what I was doing when I was running another alt for a friend. Or alternatively, you can just use a couple tune-ups until the aggro is broken, and then just move on to the next cog. Like here, it attacks Cricket, which means my aggro is broken, just gonna move on to the next cog. And you could do this for a longer period of time if you wanted to like get 1,500 tune-up points in one facility, but I usually just train tune-up kind of on the side. Occasionally in battles, I'll just save the last cog, get a couple rounds of tune-up and get the points. But generally for tune-up, that's the way you're gonna want to do it. You want to use some low sound on one tune and just spam tune-up on the other. Now for throw, just want to one-shot cogs in here, as you see here. For squirt, you want to generally one-shot cogs. You could train squirt and zap together, potentially, especially if you have a friend of zap. It's actually easier to train these if they're not prestige, because they won't bounce as much, so I'd maybe recommend maxing your zap and squirt before you prestige either one of them, just to make things easier on yourself, especially with the bugs that prestige squirt has with zap. So, that is what I would recommend for those tracks. Now, for lure, you're going to want to try to find a higher tune with lure, or get tune-up or trap stuns to make it more accurate in here. For drop, you're going to want to squirt or throw to give it a stun. And then trap, obviously you're just going to spam on lure. Trap's probably one of the easiest gags in this game to train. And then for sound, you don't really have to do specific runs. If you can get sound to like Auga Prestige, or especially Elfin Prestige, you can just kind of go with random bullion groups. Spam your sound everywhere, and you're going to get like 400 points, and you're going to max before you know it. So that would be my, I guess, more specific strategy on what I would train each gag like. And your biggest advantages will be things like if you have tunes with 3 stocks, tunes with Unites to stop you from dying, or maybe even restock your gags with the Unite, tunes that can keep you alive and carry you through stuff. The most efficient possible path is you have one high person carry like 3 low tunes through something, and just kind of watch all the cogs as I'm doing here. One of the ways I showed this though was that you can one-man army this stuff pretty effectively. If you have 2 tunes with decent setups to begin with, you can get those gags from decent to max fairly effectively. And essentially it comes a lot down to synergistic training. Like as you can see here, training the sound and tune together, pretending that Sperry maybe didn't have max sound, training the throw in combination, the lure and trap together. You want to try to find people to work with that are going to be using the same types of training you are. That is your number one piece of advice. And this is our final battle here. You say I found a squirt barrel, so now okay, I'm going to use my fire hoses. I like the idea of training multiple tracks at once because it allows you to be opportunistic and take advantage of those random barrels you find that don't require, say, a gag up or something like that. Because now I can get all those fire hoses in. I got some extra cream pies in earlier. These type of things give you extra gag points potentially if you spam your strongest gags without requiring something of the user in terms of, having a certain setup. And you'll see about how many gag points I get at the end of this, but even with a couple unlucky misses, even with maybe me not playing perfectly, I was running 2, so the puzzles obviously took a little longer. Within the time frame I'm talking about, you're still getting an insane amount of XP. If you did this for an entire gag farming Friday, you could easily get your gags to very strong, if not maxed. And on this particular gag farming Friday, I got Cricket's gags from level 4 across the board to level 6 and 7, essentially. And it wasn't like I was playing the whole time. I was actually also running Sperry and another tune through a bunch of back 9s because I'm trying to max boss spot. But you'll see here I'm going to try to use some tune-up on the last cog just because I want to go ahead and work that because I'm trying to get everything even. But yeah, basically my idea is get your gags to a certain point, get enough of the gag pouch, and then after that run bullions with a group that can survive it and just spam your shit, and you will have really insane results in terms of your gag multiplying. And it's just by far the most efficient way to train, and I noticed a lot of people are trained on the street until they max gags. That's cool, but it is not as efficient. If you use a strategy more like what I'm showing here, you can go much faster, and it's not that hard to get training groups because a lot of people realize this and they're willing to work with you. As you saw, it did that in under half an hour, so that was pretty effective, and that's about all I have to say. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this helped you out. Have a nice day.